Does it get any better when spring football practice starts and your team is in the Sweet 16? I don't think so.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, I know we're going to talk some Sweet 16 basketball, but we are the University of Alabama. We are still a football school, and today football practice starts. How excited are you, and what are you looking forward to the most?
I can't believe that they make people go to work and go to school today. Should be some sort of at least a statewide holiday, if not a national holiday. I don't understand why people are going to work and school in Europe, frankly. I mean, it should be that big a deal. What am I looking forward to most? I think, obviously, as we know, the position battles are fun, but they're just starting. I mean, no one, as fun as the position battles are in the springtime, Nick Saban does not go up to players on A-Day or the day after A-Day and says, congratulations, you've won the starting spot at will linebacker. You're the will linebacker this season. I mean, we all know that is not how that works. Nothing is settled until fall camp, until basically a week to 10 days before the game against Middle Tennessee. Then it will be sort of set by Coach Saban and the staff in terms of, okay, who's the ones, who's the twos, who's a one in the specialty package. And so no battles are won during the spring, but it's definitely the thing to look forward to most is Milroe versus Simpson. What's the running back rotation going to look like? What's the receiver rotation going to look like? The fifth offensive lineman, if not the fourth. We returned 4 offensive linemen who have started games in the past. Those 4 are going to start out in first-team roles today. That's McLaughlin, Dalcourt, Latham, and Booker. They'll all be starters today for sure. And then we'll see how it shakes out over time. And in the secondary, so many new faces. We know Kool-Aid's kind of locked into a spot. We know Terrion Arnold's at least going to start out first-team corner. Malachi Moore will have a significant role at either star or safety. We're hearing safety. But we'll see. So all of that's interesting stuff, and I can't wait for every single bit of it. But as we all know, spring is practice. Nothing is decided for sure, and we'll all just look forward to A-Day, which is the first day we'll be able to see our team play, and A-Day is 1 month from Wednesday.
Yeah, that's certainly going to be something we're all looking forward to. So I'm looking at a Bama Online article that said the biggest questions entering spring practice. And, of course, the first question, and look, it's almost so obvious, and we're going to talk about it so much I don't even want to discuss it right now, is what do you think? Quarterback. I mean, but isn't it, first of all, and I love Bama Online, and I love Charlie Potter. He does an amazing job.
Good people. Good work over there.
I don't mean this as a shot at him at all, but that's like low-hanging fruit. You could talk about the quarterback situation. If Bryce Young were coming back, you know what the number one question would be? Who's going to back up Bryce Young? What if Bryce Young gets hurt? So the quarterback is always low-hanging fruit. But the other questions that I think are just as important, like the offensive line, what's going to go on there, who will step up to fill roles in the secondary, especially now that one of our key signees just got in a little bit of legal hot water. We don't know what's going to happen there. And again, maybe you didn't think Tony Mitchell was going to be an immediate starter or whatever. Well, he had the potential to be, so what other newcomers will make a huge impact. We got a ton of the guys already there right now. That's one thing that probably is not a question. It's one of the things I'm probably most excited about. This ballyhooed class that's coming in. A lot of them were early enrollees. I'm excited just to see them even in pads and shorts, like shoulder pads and shorts, and to go, oh my God, he's as big as I thought, or oh my God, he's as chiseled as I thought. I'm as excited about the newcomers as I've just about ever been.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing the pictures, seeing video, the practice videos, and of course, listen to these first press conferences of the spring or fall are always full of information. I mean, in terms of there's news that the football program has that it sort of comes out when Coach Saban talks. That'll be big. There'll be player interviews. I'm looking forward to getting to know this team. Look, there's a lot of new faces. Today, I'm releasing the top 6, the final installation of my player ranking countdown, the top 6 players on the team. And a slight preview is Jace McClellan is number 6. And gosh, talk about blinking your eyes and a career is gone. Can you believe Jace McClellan is a senior? Now he has a COVID year. He could come back next year. That's not going to happen because running backs go pro as soon as they're able to be taken, frankly, as soon as they're not just draft eligible, but almost certain to be taken in the draft fairly high. They're gone. So this will be it for Jace, I'm sure. 6th player on my countdown. So I'm saying he's the 6th best player on the whole team. And frankly, we don't know him as well as we knew Bryce and Will and Jordan Battle, a lot of seniors from last year's team. So now it's the get to know them. So I'm looking forward to those player interviews that we get to watch. It's just like, hey, this is the 2023 football team. It's a new faces, new stars, guys that are going to be great players and make things like All-American teams. How about a Tyler Booker, who as a true sophomore, I think could make a run at All-American. Deontay Lawson is going to go from a little used part-time starter to maybe the face of the front 7. I mean, that's the way I look at him. I mean, he's a big-time leader. Dallas Turner, one of the best players on the team. Kool-Aid McKinstry. This is probably his last season at Alabama. It feels like he got here last week. Unbelievable, but very excited.
Hey, I'm glad you brought up Jace McClellan and, the fact that he's going to be a senior and blink your eyes and all that. It would be nice to have a running back you can put your arms around again. Like, is Jahmyr Gibbs, we hardly knew ye. Yeah, and I feel like he was underutilized. So, despite the fact that he had a couple of huge runs against Arkansas, I think you could also make the case, at least from my eyes, and maybe this is just typical Alabama fan looking at the negative rather than the positive. When I think Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, certainly I could think explosive. I mean, I'd want him. I'd take him on my team 11 times out of 10, which is impossible, but I'd do it. You know what I think of, sadly?
Yep.
The drop against Tennessee that probably would have scored a touchdown and won the game for us. I mean, he did so many other great things, and that's like I can't get that out of my head. Brian Robinson, love him. I thought he worked his tail off. I think Brian Robinson.
He was here for 4 full years.
Yeah, but I don't think like he was ever embraced or thought of anywhere in the same vein as a Mark Ingram, a Trent Richardson, a Derrick Henry, even an Eddie Lacy, one of those guys, even a Damian Harris, really. I mean, Damian Harris really became a fan favorite and still is. I'm ready to put my arms around a running back. And then, what it feels like we've always had a running back that everybody's like, okay, when in doubt, we can always count on this guy. But then, that we hug and we love. And then his backup is a guy we put our arms around and go, we love you too, big guy. I don't know I feel like we're just putting our arms, like one arm around the shoulders of the other guy, and we love you too. Now, but we're waiting on that one guy we can really hug,
Well, there's two. There's 2 on this ride. I'd go ahead and predict right now, Luke. Now, that may happen with Jace because we're so familiar with him. It may happen with Jace, but I think Justice Haynes are going to be huge fan favorites. First of all, and it's really because they're sort of a return to the Najee, Ingram, Derrick Henry, Trent. I think Jam Miller and Justice Haynes will be that level of player. I really do. And I think you have to be that level of player to get the universal hug from the rather hard to please Alabama fandom.
Dang it, I muted myself. The
Would it
metaphor
be the start of spring practice without you muting yourself and still talking to us?
I'm in mid-season form, baby.
First day of spring practice, of course you're going to make an error, little fumble
Right.
there.
Let me tell everybody about FanDuel. Look, you want to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon. You're going to love it. You're going to get that no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win at FanDuel. You'll love FanDuel. They got everything going. Of course, you can bet on the Sweet 16, or you can bet on the NBA, or you can bet on a bunch of other stuff. Baseball's coming up. I don't watch it, but you do probably. I know. I mean, you, Jimmy, and you, the people listening. You too, Josh from Birmingham, who doesn't want his last name known because he's embarrassed he listens to our podcast, which, by the way, we are too. You can bet on anything from money line to spreads. You can combine it all in parlays. You even have a same game parlay. That's pretty cool. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Trust me, you'll love this website. It's easy to download, easy to pay in, even easier to get paid out. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Tell them Luke sent you. All right, Jimmy. Also go check out Locked On College Basketball. Look, I mean, Sweet 16 stuff. You want to know about Locked On College Basketball. You want to know about college basketball. Look, it's important. So a lot of times around this time of year, we're not as interested in basketball. We're only interested in spring practice. Well, this time we're interested in basketball. In fact, these next two segments are going to be all basketball, despite the fact that football is starting right now. Jimmy, I saw something today on ESPN. Now, this because it's Kentucky, it sounds worse. If this were another team, I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. But Kentucky hadn't made a Sweet 16 since 2019. Wow. Alabama's been to 2 since then. I mean, I really had this thought. And again, I know this is Locked On Bama, and I'm not trying to throw darts at the University of Kentucky. I like the fact that Kentucky is really good in basketball, and they've helped. Look, they've propped up this league at times. But right now, I mean, it's not like they're weighing it down, but, you know, don't you feel like – is it just me, or do I feel like Nate Oates, Bruce Pearl, Eric Musselman, those are 3 off the top of my head that I think are all better coaches right now than John Calipari. And, yes, John Calipari has a national championship. Those other guys don't. Okay. But I'm saying right now, like – not even short term, not even like for this 1 year. Like if it was just a one-off, I don't think you could even say that legitimately. But Arkansas is in the Sweet 16 for the 3rd straight year. They could go to the Elite 8 for the 3rd straight year. Alabama's in the Sweet 16 for the 2nd time in 2 years. They've won the SEC and the SEC tournament in the same year, 2 out of the last 3 years. Auburn's won the SEC in the last 2 years, and they've been to the tournament a lot recently. Now, they missed it one time 3 years ago, but whatever. But I mean, why is that a crazy statement? And shoot, I almost want to include Buzz Williams. I'm not going to do it.
Or even Tennessee and Rick Barnes.
Certainly could include Tennessee. Okay, that's a good one. I glossed over Tennessee. I shouldn't. Now, you know, Kentucky guys may say, well, we beat Tennessee twice this year. That's true. Now, what you're judged on is March. We have talked about how unfair that is, and you and I want to celebrate what Alabama has done this year and win the tournament and the regular season. I think that's unbelievable. I want banners everywhere. Mm-hmm. But in the end, you're judged in March, and you know Alabama's the number 1 overall seed. Arkansas as an 8 seed beat Kansas, the number 1 seed, and Tennessee beat Duke, who is the standard in college basketball. So. Without their starting point guard, by the way. And meanwhile, Kentucky, who was favored, by the way, as the 6 over the 3 seed Kansas State, they blow an 8 or 9 point lead late in the second half and end up losing to a team that has sort of a newbie coach. So, yeah, I don't think that's too far-fetched. And again, I know it's Locked On Bama. My point is that's how far Alabama's come. I think we've passed Kentucky for the short term. Long term, I don't know. I mean, Kentucky's always going to be good. They're bringing in the number 1 class next year. But tell me why John Calipari is so much better than Nate Oates. I don't think anybody can do it.
No, I mean, I want to say it's a little bit like Georgia, Alabama in football right now, a little bit. It's not an exact analogy, but I think it's fair. If right now somebody says Nick Saban is the greatest head football coach of all time, but right now at this minute, Kirby Smart's the best coach in the SEC. I don't disagree or agree because I'm biased terribly towards Nick Saban, of course, but I would get it. I wouldn't say that whoever said that is a Georgia homer. I think that's a fair opinion based on what's happened the last couple of seasons in 21 and 22 and going into 23. I think that's a fair opinion. So I do think it's a very fair opinion that Nate Oates and Bruce Pearl and Eric Musselman and Rick Barnes are all doing a better job today than John Calipari is. Now, none of those guys, in my opinion, have had Calipari's career, and some of this might be temporary and not permanent. But that's sort of the way I look at it. I don't think Kirby Smart is going to one day pass Nick Saban as the greatest head coach of all time. I don't believe that. But I do think it's fair if somebody says, hey, right now, this minute exactly, I would put Kirby ahead of Nick as it stands this minute. I don't agree, but I get it. With the basketball, I think there's a longer sample size here of Kentucky not living up to Kentucky standards. They'll be the first to tell you. And I don't know enough about their situation to tell Calipari how to fix it, nor am I narcissistic enough to tell you I would have the answers. But I know this. If things went really sideways in Tuscaloosa, I would want Coach Saban to have a complete staff makeover. Maybe Kentucky just did that, and I'm unaware of it because I don't keep up with their assistants coming and going. But I do think Kentucky needs to keep Calipari, but John needs to radically adjust. And I'm not saying change. He needs to radically adjust recruiting and coaching and maybe even philosophical style of play. They need to hit a reset button. Okay, now we're going to start trying. No, I mean, they need some changes because it's not good enough. And I'm sure all Kentucky fans, they might not agree with what I just said, but I bet they all agree with it's just not good enough right now.
Yeah, and again, if Alabama hadn't been doing what Alabama's been doing the last few years and they had been doing what Kentucky's been doing, I think I'd probably be, I mean, we could always do better, but I think I'd be pretty satisfied with where the program is. That's the standard Kentucky has set. But now, see, Nate Oates has got us in a place where I'm like, why don't we compete every year now? I mean, the problem is, I guess, it's like you're right. There's a correlation here between the football in that Alabama has given other teams an opening and some hope. Tennessee was like, we had beaten them so badly. They have guys singing songs about, I hate Alabama. I hate Crimson Red. I hate how they yell Roll Tide when I got a Braves hat on my head. And I hate them because every time we play them, we lose by 32 points. It's not like I hate them because their fan bases are so snooty and it's like, no, they beat the crap out of us. And then they're like that, and now we gave them we opened the door this much and that football fluttered through the goalpost. So we've given them hope again. And we're like, man, we kind of liked it when y'all had no hope. Georgia, they won back-to-back national championships. They deserve respect for that. But again, it's like we gave Georgia hope. And so now we had beaten Georgia several times in a row. We let them win in the national championship. Let them win. They won in the national championship game. I shouldn't say we let them win. But my point is, if I'm Kentucky, I'm looking around going, hey, didn't we used to always win these tournaments and these championships?
And we're seeing this at Alabama right now, Luke, and I think Calipari's been going this through a while, and Alabama's seeing it happen right now, and that is it's got to be hard to build the culture that he wants when his roster changes out every year.
Yeah,
he's got a new roster every year. How can you build and maintain a culture when all the players are new seemingly every season? Alabama's a great example of that, Luke, because at Alabama, we might think, wow, Nate Oates has built a great culture of responsibility and unselfishness and all these players that are team first. Luke, we didn't have that last season under Nate Oates. We didn't have last year's team didn't have a good culture at all. That's why they, much like Kentucky, underachieved based on the talent on hand. Last year's team underachieved because of a poor culture. Now this year, it's fantastic. It's through the roof. But anybody that just automatically thinks that's here to stay, ask Kentucky. It's not. It's very difficult to build a culture when the players come and go. We're sort of seeing that in football to an extent where there is now massive turnover. Look, the turnover is easy to count. There's 30 new football players this year, 28 signees and 2 portal guys, 30. You have 85 on the team. More than a third of the entire locker room changes out now every year. So it's going to be harder to build your culture because the players are coming and going.
Jimmy, let's take a break. When we come back, I want to start into a scouting report from CBS about San Diego State for those who don't know anything about San Diego State, like us. All right, Jimmy. So, yesterday when I was talking about San Diego State and Alabama, and again, I'm not going to pretend I knew anything about San Diego State. All I knew was watching them play the other day against Furman, and they seemed to get up and down the court a lot. I mean, I was like, wow, okay, this may be sort of an up and down game because they put up a lot of points early on Furman and sort of got out ahead, and it never really looked back. So I was thinking this is going to be a fun, like bam, bam, bam kind of game because that's what we do. Well, here's the scouting report from CBS, and this is why it's not good to look at one game and say this is what a team is. This is from CBS. It says, scouting the Aztecs. San Diego State hangs its hat on defense. The Aztecs are holding opponents to only 63 points per game and limit them to just 28.8% three-point shooting. They prefer to play at a slow pace and are excellent at forcing opponents to play slow. Physical guard Matt Bradley, who, by the way, I looked him up because his name was very familiar. He transferred in from Cal. He's an older guy, good player. He's the only San Diego State player who averages double figures. That's weird to me. This isn't an attractive offensive team, but the Aztecs are fully brought into this imposing style that six-year coach Brian Dutcher prefers as they make their first Sweet 16 appearance since 2014. So not only was I wrong, it's like the opposite of what I thought. I'm sort of like, okay, now I get it. At first I thought, I always talk about how it seems to me the committee, and maybe it is all happenstance, but the committee does a pretty good job of trying to set up matchups for later on down the line or like in the second round or whatever. Like they did, like A&M screwed the pooch, or it would have been Texas A&M Texas in the second round. I mean, who wouldn't like that? Now, it should have happened. It didn't, but it should have happened. But Alabama against San Diego State now makes more sense as a potential matchup. It's like, all right, what you want to, and Alabama, Maryland makes more sense. And Alabama, West Virginia would have made sense because what the committee, I think, is saying is, all right, Alabama, we think you're the number one team and you're the number one seed, but you got to show that you just can't beat teams that are, that run up and down the court or try and match you man for man. You got to beat teams that beat you up because we saw Oklahoma kind of beat you up. We saw Tennessee kind of beat you up. We saw UConn kind of beat you up. We want to know that you can play with these physical squads. Now, Alabama did a marvelous job of dealing with it against Maryland, especially in the second half last Saturday. But it sounds like we got another test like that against San Diego State. I personally feel like we're ready for it. And frankly, Jimmy, I'm actually more encouraged and more optimistic about winning this game, knowing this scouting report, because I was kind of thinking, man, if it is an up and down game, it'll be more fun, but it worries me a little bit if we get cold and the other team gets hot, AKA Providence, Alabama, 87.
Right. Well, it seems
in Louisville, by the way.
It seems like we've played a lot of teams lately that do have the opposite philosophy, that like to slow it down, turn it into a slog fest. Hope they get a lot of, hope the officials just let them play and just sort of physically beat us up in the paint and just make it real physical and slow. It seems like we played a lot of teams that play like that. Maryland being the last one. And guess what? Alabama still wins the game. Alabama still wins most of the time. Now, Oklahoma beat Alabama that way. Tennessee beat Alabama that way. But Alabama's won a lot of games since that time against teams playing the same way. So I welcome it. The way I look at it, I think this is a great challenge. Not so much for the offense. What I mean, Luke, is it's a great challenge for our defense. Nate Oates can talk to our team and say, the whole country is fawning over how they play defense. All we hear is, wow, Alabama might be in trouble. Look at how good that team over there is on defense. For Alabama to out defense San Diego State. If Alabama plays lockdown, fantastic defense against that bunch, they may only score in the 40s, Luke. And you can't tell me that Alabama is not going to score 60 points Friday night. Lose 62-60, but they're going to score 60 points. But you play great lockdown defense against San Diego State, they just won't score much. And I think that's the challenge here is, hey, when y'all leave the court, you let it be known to America who was the better defensive basketball team. And if Alabama pulls that off, they're going to win this game. And it's not about style points. It is surviving. It is what do we need to do to get to Sunday? And that's it.
Here's what's funny. I just had this thought. Like, Alabama might have to go through now. I mean, forget Texas, Corpus Christi, but Alabama might have to go through Maryland, who plays some of the ugliest basketball you've ever seen. Then San Diego State, who apparently plays some of the slowest basketball you've ever seen. And then go through potentially Princeton, who also is quite considered to be more of a slow Hoosiers-esque type basketball squad to get to the Final Four. And if they do get to the Final Four, they may end up playing Michigan State, who I would also consider to be more of a Big Ten-ish plotting team, or Tennessee, who is incredibly physical, like we're talking about. I mean, Alabama's going through a ton of physical teams. No, they're not the highest seeds, but my God, are they playing some teams that will elbow you in the crotch.
Well, playing a 5 Friday, for a lot of people, San Diego State doesn't have a big name, but they are a 5. And who are you supposed to play in the Sweet 16? Per chalk, a 4. So, playing a 5 and not a 4, to me, that's really a wash. So far, seeding-wise, Alabama hasn't got any real – I mean, Maryland was an 8. That's exactly who you're supposed to play in, per chalk in round 2 and when you're a 1. And when you're a 1, you play a 4. In the round of Sweet 16, we're getting a 5. So thus far, seeding-wise, Alabama hasn't gotten any breaks. But – maybe matchup and name brand, maybe they have.
All right, buddy, that's going to do it for today's podcast. I'm off to drive to Washington, D.C., and then on to New York. So we will have to catch up tomorrow sometime. But until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.